if you just do it, it'll turn out okay. And here I am with the master of plants, Ness.
Well, thank you. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a master of plants, but I really like plants. They don't get the love they deserve often. Yeah,
Yeah, without them, where
we
we
are
get our
not.
oxygen?
Yeah, exactly. And also, although a lot of oxygen is also comes from cyanobacteria, and they are not technically plants, but still, yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of our oxygen that we breathe comes from plants. Yeah, still, and we
well,
are.
actually, they all do,
Yeah,
but without cyanobacteria, plants couldn't do what they do because they kidnap them. And
exactly. Yeah, they have little cyanobacteria inside their cells. Yes, exactly. But we are going to talk about like even though plants by and large don't get enough love, we are now going to talk about one group of plants which especially don't get a lot of love.
yes, I think last time you were here, we talked about their like first cousin, the angiosperms.
Exactly, the angiosperms, the flowering plants, which are pretty much pretty much any plant that you can see outside is an angiosperm, almost always. But there are exceptions, of course, and most of those exceptions are the group that we are going to talk about today. So I think I will screen share right now. There we go.
Right.
So yes, we are going to talk about the gymnosperms. Let's see if can I maybe
Naked seeds.
have it larger or
One second. One second.
larger or smaller? Like or is it good like this?
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, right. Sorry, my I got something stuck in my throat for 1 second. All right, the gymnosperms, otherwise known as the naked seeds. That's what the name. That's what the name means basically. The angiosperms are the name refers to that their seeds are enclosed in a structure called a fruit, but in the gymnosperms they are naked. The seeds are naked. That's the main difference. But I will of course mention it later more. Also, quickly recap the plant evolution, we have the land plants called the embryophytes, which are maybe I can change my cursor also to a pointer. Let's see. There we go. So the land plants. So you have also many relatives of the land plants that are commonly called the green algae. And the land plants are, as the name suggests, they mainly live on land. And they originate about 500 million years ago. But their fossil record began very noticeable around 475 million years ago. So, and they are
So this is
characterized by.
before. Sorry. So this is before any arthropods or tetrapods came aboard land.
Um, I think yeah, they made landfall before even the arthropods, but the arthropods quickly followed. Like I don't think there is a lot of time in between when the land plants first came on land and then the arthropods. But I'm not specific. I don't specifically know exactly what the time difference is, but I imagine it's not a lot of difference. Although regarding the tetrapods took a while to get on land, relative to plants and the arthropods. Yes, and the land plants are characterized by a diploid embryo, like green algae when they have sex and meiosis, they only make a single cell, a single zygote, and the zygote immediately goes into meiosis. So the diploid phase is only a single cell in the green algae, but in the land plants, the diploid embryo becomes an embryo. It remains a diploid until it starts to uh, undergo meiosis.
Mm.
So yeah. Oh, as I stated before, you have here the green algae with the single celled zygote phase, and then the early land plants they got a diploid structure called the sporophyte, which is diploid. And fertilization happens inside the structure called the archegonium within the diploid stage.
Now you're probably going to get to it eventually, but these things are mostly pollinized by the wind, right?
Oh, the gym. I will get to that, but we are not there yet. Like right now, we are still
Okay.
at the very early lineages. We are the green algae and also the early land plants. They fertilize, or their reproductive cycle is highly dependent on moisture, like either underwater or in very very moist environments, and without. That's why you see, like, for example, mosses and liverworts. You don't see these things in very dry environments. You only see them in like very damp, in the undergrowth, basically, because they can't reproduce without a lot of moisture. But yeah.
I do have one question, unless you answer it later, but
Right.
it's are land plants one common ancestor that came from the water, or do they have separate entries?
Like the land plants or the embryophytes, they have a single common ancestor.
All right, because I know the arthropods have several
Mm-hmm.
from the water families, and I know tetrapods only have one. So I guess I'm worrying about land plants.
Yeah. Like I am pretty sure that you have several lineages of green algae that have also like some quasi terrestrial species, although not as terrestrial as the land plant. Like, I think the land plants have made the jump to true, quote unquote, true terrestrial habitats only one time. I'm pretty sure that's the most consensus today. It happened only once. The land plants. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So moving on to a more derived state is that in what you have in non-vascular plants, the diploid sporophyte, that's the orange red thing here, remains highly dependent on the haploid gametophyte, the green bit here, which is the main body. But then in vascular plants, there is a switch. In the vascular plants, the sporophyte became free living. That's the red structure here. And it became a free living phase of the life cycle. And then the diploid sporophyte are larger and also they are the dominant life cycle. Like, more cell divisions occur within this life cycle relative to the haplophyte gametophyte stage, which is the opposite of what is happening in the earlier land plants.
So in the box, the ones on the left side are the extinct land plants.
Or you still have modern bryophytes. They are like the mosses, the liverworts.
I meant the smaller box.
Oh, this one. These are these are extinct ones. These ones, right here. Okay. These are extinct ones. But these are still living. Like, the living vascular plants include the ferns and the gymnosperms and the angiosperms, the living vascular plants.
Right.
And in the living vascular plants, the haploid gametophyte becomes even smaller, such that you almost never see this. Like, this little thing is like one stage of the fern life cycle, but you never see this. This is like very tiny, and it's only grows underground. Basically, you don't see. So you only see the fern when you go out in the woods, basically. Yeah. All right. So moving on to the vascular plants, they came around we discussed before, the living vascular plants, they came around in the Silurian about 425 million years ago. And they are characterized by vascular tissue, as the name suggests. They have roots, they have true leaves, which this enables them to grow very tall. Like most non-vascular plants, like the liverworts, the hornworts, and the masters, they only grow a few centimeters, and the tallest is only 60 centimeters, about 2 feet, the maximum height of these non-vascular plants. But of course, with the vascular plants, because they have the plumbing system basically, that's how they got over this constraint, and now it allowed them to grow very, very big, enormous in some instances, as we will note later. Yeah.
All right.
And so within the vascular plants, you have the seed plants, the spermatophytes, and they are characterized by having the embryo encased within a seed. And you have like one transitional fossil called Roncaria, which has some, but not all characteristics of seed plants. So you have like a very neat transitional fossil in this case. And the seed allowed them to resist drought, and they can with seeds you can also like if the conditions of the environment are unfavorable, it's not enough moisture or not enough sunlight or whatever, then the seed can remain dormant for it can wait it out until favorable conditions arrive, which explains their high success in today's world. And the haploid gametophyte stage is further reduced. It's no longer free living. Like in ferns, this gametophyte was still free living, but in the seed plants, they are no longer free living. They are now reduced to just the ovules and the pollen. The pollen the pollen and ovules are the only gametophyte that are still remaining. They don't live independent of the diploid sporophyte stage, basically. Yeah.
Right. So seed plants are the angiosperms and the gymnosperms, but not the fern.
Exactly.
Areas.
Exactly. The ferns are outside the seed plants. Yes. Like ferns, they don't produce seeds. They just produce. What ferns do? They like ferns are the sporophyte. They produce spores, and the spores become this stage, and this stage is not a seed. It doesn't grow in a seed. So yeah, it's a spore producing plant, and seed plants they reproduce by making seeds. Yeah, and this is also what you mentioned. Here we see the emergence of wind pollination. Like seed plants, they now basically have gotten over the constraint of having their reproduction being dependent on water. Like even ferns, they still rely on water, especially this stage of the life cycle. It is highly dependent on very moist environments. But with seeds and with wind pollination, now they don't rely as much on water for their reproduction. So they can invade many more habitats than what ferns are unable to do. Yeah. All right, and that is a good image of the transition of seed plant, Roncaria. And then now we come to gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are naked seeds, while the angiosperms are seeds encased in an ovary or a modified leaf. Like this, during the evolution of the angiosperms, you have the ovules are on the outside of the leaves, and the leaves become modified to produce the ovary, which is what defines angiosperms. It's because their seeds are encased in this structure inside the flower. But in gymnosperms, the seeds can still be housed within a structure, like cones, for example. But even though they are on cones, it's still naked to the environment. They aren't fully enclosed. So that's what this is why they are still called naked seeds.
So these seeds don't really have like what the other plants do, where they have animals eat this, grab the stuff around the seeds to move it somewhere else. Like
yeah,
fruit and stuff.
although as we see, the gymnosperms also have modified structure that will entice animals to eat them as well, and we will look at more. Yeah,
okay.
it's although plants are very diverse in how they can produce fruits and such, so they have a lot bigger capacity to have different shapes and sizes with fruits. But gymnosperms also do sometimes they sometimes mimic fruits, and sometimes they are sometimes mistaken as fruits, the gymnosperms, even though they are not fruits technically. Like fruit, definitionally or botanically speaking, a fruit is a developed ovary. So fruit, by definition, is something that only angiosperms make. So gymnosperms don't make fruit, but they make some of them make some things that are very fruit-like, basically. Yeah. So, something about the genetics, like in plants, they like in animals, we use what's called Hox genes to lay out our body plan during development. But in plants, they use what's called matchbox genes, which are involved in the development and especially in the reproductive structures of the plants. Like for example, in angiosperms, they use the A, B, C, D, E classes of genes. And during the evolution of angiosperms, like in the early angiosperms, these genes form a fading border pattern, such that the division between different flower parts are not well resolved. Like you have the outer tepal, the inner tepal, but then in later angiosperms, you get what's called a strict border pattern, where the classes of genes don't overlap as much as the earlier ones. So this differentiation caused the differentiation between the sepal and the petal. So, for example, if you look at a lily, like a lily pad and like a lily flower, you don't see like the outer floral parts are tepals. You don't see a petal and a sepal separately in lilies. But in other flowers, for example, in flowers as a good example, for example, like a sunflower, for example, you see a petal and a sepal as a different structure in them. But in gymnosperms, they also have matchbox genes, but they only have the C class and the B class genes. And when they express the C class genes, the cone they develop are female cones, and when they express both the B and the C, then it becomes a male cone. And they are homologous to the C class genes in angiosperms, which produce the female structure, and then when B and C are expressed at the same time, they produce the stamen, the male parts of the flower. So they are homologous. They are also very similar in function, but flowering plants have a greater number of these genes, which probably explains why they can have this very complex flower organ, while gymnosperms are more or less limited to the cone body plan. Yeah, and it turns out that the evolution of the matchbox genes are again involve gene duplication events, or perhaps whole genome duplication events, that gave rise to more and more of these matchbox class genes. All right. Any questions before we move on, or maybe? All right.
I can't think of it at the moment.
All right. So now we in gymnosperms, the seeds and the pollen are developed in the surface of leaves or scales, or which are modified leaves, and these are spirally arranged into cones, and the seeds develop on the cones. And And you can see in this diagram we have these little scales and seeds and such. So, and these can be very differently arranged. Like you have sometimes you have a cone, or you have a single structure called let's see, what's the name again? A fernicule, I think. A fernicule. Yeah, a fernicule. Oh no, this one is called an arrow, where you only have like one single seed at the end of the instead of a cone, you can have like one single seed at the end of a structure, which is called an arrow. Now I will mention one example of an arrow before, yeah.
Like an arrow, like bow and arrow.
No, an ARIL, aril. So yeah, and these can also be fleshy. These structures so that gymnosperms can grow, and they try their best to mimic fruits, because these are also often eaten by animals too. Yeah, especially birds. Birds are very good at dispersing these gymnosperm fruit mimics. Yeah. And there are more pictures of different types of reproductive structures that gymnosperms can make. You have the classical cones, and you have many different structures that can and very fruit-like structures too, as well. Yeah.
Now, you said they're like fruit mimics, so they don't taste good at all.
No, I don't recommend going out and eating gymnosperm fruit. Like gymnosperms fruit mimics often are toxic too. Often, yeah. So it's sometimes I'm not entirely sure. I think sometimes the fruit-like structures are more to give nutrients to the seed, perhaps instead of enticing animals. But but you have exceptions where the seeds or the fruit mimics are meant to be consumed by birds or other animals. Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. And gymnosperms are predominantly wind pollinated, but there are exceptions, as we will mention later. And while most flowering plants produce both female and male parts on the same structure, like in most flowering plants are what's called hermaphrodites. They have both the female and male parts on the flower. But gymnosperms are either monoecious or diecious. So a monoecious plant, they have the male structure and female, the male structure and female structures on separate branches, which is like most pines or conifers. Most of these are monoecious. You have, for example, here the female cones often grow on higher branches, but or the other way around. It's not the other way around. I don't know. I think the high branches grow male cones, and the lower branches grow female cones. Not always, but so very often you have the differences in height. Basically, they grow first the male, or first the female, and then the male. Yeah.
So can these trees self-pollinate themselves?
I think they can, but I think there is maybe also some form of incompatibility where they don't accept pollen from the same plant. It's very often also the case with angiosperms, where they don't accept pollen from the same. But although there are many cases where you can have self-pollination, that is not an exception in plants. Yeah. And you can also have the situation where you have a diecious plant, where you have one individual plant which only grows female structures, and one individual which only grows male structures.
Is that unique to the gymnosperms, or can other plants do that too?
There are plenty of angiosperms which also do this, although most angiosperms are hermaphrodites, most of them. And as I mentioned here, gymnosperms, like most gymnosperms, like over half gymnosperms, are diacerous, although most conifers are monoacerous. Most conifers are this. Yeah. So you have 4 main groups of gymnosperms: the conifers, the cycads, the ginkgos, and the gnetophytes. So we will first start with the most familiar group, the conifers. You have 8 families, 68 genera, and over 600 species. And you have 3 main groups. You have the Pinidae, which are the pines. And you have also like one group which includes two groups, the Araucariales and the Cupressales. But we will first go over the Pinidae. The Pinidae are the pines or the conifers. And this is the most diverse group of these 3 groups, which includes like 250 species. They are mostly tall evergreens, and they predominate in the northern hemisphere, and they dominate the cold and mountainous regions of the world. As you might already be familiar with, when you go into the very high altitudes in mountains, you begin to see something changing in the flora pattern. Like you don't see many angiosperms. You only see mainly the same tree and again, the same pine tree again and again.
Yeah, but speaking of pines, I recently learned, not recently, a few years ago, that what we think of as Christmas trees aren't really pine trees. Aren't true pines.
No, I think there are like many different species that are used as Christmas trees. I think the most common one are the spruce. I think the most common for Christmas trees. I can check real quick. Just fact checking a bit.
Okay.
Oh no, the Scotch pine and Eastern white pine are the most common Christmas trees. All right.
Oh, so they are pines. I heard they weren't true pines.
But there are many. But apparently there are many different different conifers that are used as Christmas trees. Like firs are also used, and spruces are also used. Maybe the Netherlands mainly uses spruces, perhaps.
Oh, so real fast though, this picture, the first picture on your thing is this is the tree that's older than the flood, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, I like the conifers have some of the oldest individual plants, or actually the oldest individual organisms that are still living today. Yeah, they are very old, like the Methuselah and the old Chico of Norway. They are very old. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the next group. The next group is called the Cupressales. This is a very interesting group. They Cupressales. Oh, sorry, the Cupressales. They tend to grow needles, like in the pine family. They grow mostly needles as leaves. Sometimes very painful ones. Like if you grab very often, like during Christmas, when you grab your tree, it pricks and stings your hand a bit. Not too much, but it's very uncomfortable. But these also grow needles first, but then when they become older, most of them, but not all of them, most of them tend to grow these soft scale-like leaves when they become older. Like the junipers, or the juniper, yeah. And also junipers, they grow these fruit-like structures too. Yeah, don't eat these. No. And they also have a near global distribution, and they also include the largest and tallest trees on Earth on record. Like the tallest is the redwood, and also the largest is the giant sequoia. Both of them are found in North America.
Oh, so redwoods are gymnosperms too.
Yes, they are gymnosperms. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and you can see it's a human here. It almost seems like the human is very far away, but he's not very far. He's just next to this tree, and this tree is enormous. Like I haven't seen one in real life yet, but I would like to stand next to one in real life. It would be a big experience. Like you would feel like an insect. At how big, like you feel like am I shrunken somehow? These trees are too big for me. Yeah.
And now start climbing that tree with our primate abilities.
Mm-hmm. All right. And there is one very notable member of this of the Cuprasales. It's called the Taxus genus, or they are commonly called the yews. And just one story: the bark extract of the Pacific yew was found to have anti-tumor properties in the 1960s. Paclitaxel, I think it's pronounced, the compound was isolated in the 70s, and it was found to interfere with the microtubules during cell division, and so it can be used to treat cancer. Was found. So, however, harvesting this compound from the trees kills them, and one single tree does not produce much of this compound. So, and there aren't many of these trees out there. So people realized very early that harvesting was not an option. It would be very unsustainable. So they looked at evolutionary relatives. The European yew was more abundant, though it did not produce the same compound. It does contain a precursor which is more abundant in needles and which can be harvested without killing the tree. So you can have a sustainable supply of the precursor compound. So then in the 1990s, it was approved for treating cancer, various cancers, under the brand name Taxol. And that's a very good, decent record. Using this drug has a 40% improvement in survival of breast cancer, and it has also been one of the best-selling cancer drugs to date. And
speaking of drugs, I noticed something a few slides back. There's a hemlock tree. Is that where they got the hemlock poison from?
Oh no, let's see. Where's the hemlock? Oh no, it's this one. It's called hemlock, but it's not related to the hemlock you are thinking about. You are thinking about is an angiosperm. If I'm not mistaken, I think I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah, it's not the hemlock you are thinking about. Yeah, I don't know why it's called hemlock, even though I'm not sure why. But it's one of this Taxol is one of the best-selling cancer drugs, but the research continues to find better and more sustainable ways to produce Taxol. Like I've seen some recent research where they produce bacterial cultures. So they are now like how we produce insulin from yeast and bacteria. We can perhaps make this drug with bacterial cultures, basically. And there is also if you look up the history of finding ways to synthesize this drug, there are very heated competitions between different groups of researchers. There's they are almost fighting to be the first, always. Yeah, because it's a very lucrative research field. Because if you find a cheaper way to produce this drug, then it's a very high demand drug around the world. Yeah. So I'm moving on to the third group of the conifers, the Araucariales. The Araucariales, they are mostly southern hemisphere subtropical conifers, and they aren't There are quite a few species, like about 200 species, but they are very restricted in their distributions. Like the predominant species are found on like one group of islands or one single island called New Caledonia, which is off the coast of Australia here. And it's a very weird place. It's a place where the time forgot almost. Like there aren't many angiosperms on that island. It's mostly conifers. These types of conifers. They are a relic of the Mesozoic, basically, at the time of the dinosaurs. It's also the case that the documentary for Walking with Dinosaurs was filmed on this very island, I think, yeah, because the landscape because of these very ancient types of flora, it looks very prehistoric with the lack of angiosperms. Yeah, but you do have a few angiosperms there. Like you have like a very tall fern, which has convergently evolved to be like a palm tree, which that's weird. You have also Amborella, which is this single flowering plant is sister to all other flowering plants. So this one diverged, like one of the early divergent lineages of flowering plants, Amborella. But yeah, but this is one of the most common species that you can have, or one of the most common genus that you can have. Araucaria, the type species of the group Araucariales. You have also one interesting genus in this group. It's called Parasitaxis, which is the only parasitic gymnosperm that we know of. It does
parasitic.
It's parasitic. It does not conduct photosynthesis. It lives as a parasite on, like, it saps the nutrients of another gymnosperm. Very closely related. Like I think it parasitizes another member of this group too. So it's a very
Okay.
it parasitizes another close relative of itself.
So are any gymnosperms like meat eaters, like some?
Oh no, I don't know. No, I don't like the carnivorous plants are angiosperms. Yeah, all of them. Yeah. All right. You have also these like I think this one genus Agatis is found in the Indo-Pacific, and Araucaria which is also found in South America and also the Indo-Pacific. But this one, Wallemia, this one is found in only Australia, and it's critically endangered. So people are trying to cultivate this plant to rescue it from extinction, Wallemia. All right. So now we're going to move on to the second group of gymnosperms, the cycads. They are mostly subtropical with feather-like leaves, unlike the gymnosperms, unlike the conifers. Conifers are mostly needle-like things, but these are like more feather pinnate leaves. And all species of cycads are diacerous. They have separate, like one plant is male and one plant is female, basically. Yeah. And also,
so these are like you said before. These are like the plants that are don't. I can't tell what that word was. You said they're all either male or female plants.
Yeah. Yes. Well, like one individual only grows male structures, and one individual only grows female structures. Yeah. Exactly. And they are also predominantly insect pollinated, mostly beetles, sometimes moths and thrips. So they are doing the what we commonly think of the angiosperm thing. They are pollinated by insects. But although most cycads are in decline worldwide, with several species being critically endangered. Yeah. But still, they are.
So are these like the subtropical? Are these like the ones that grow in rainforests?
I think they are also found in also found in tropical forests, but they also like found on subtropical islands and such. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But yeah, it's mostly subtropical or tropical. Yeah, yeah. Here have more examples of one common one genus, the cycas genus, has most of the species, like over 100 of the species, and they are found in these regions over here, mostly in the Indo-Pacific here, but also like a few on this island in the Caribbean too. Yeah, and they can and their seeds, they grow on the margins of these leaf-like scales. And you have many different types. This species grows seeds like this, and this species has only like one seed on either side of their leaf-like structure. Yeah.
Right.
And now there's the third group of gymnosperms, the ginkgos. Although I should say ginkgo singular, because there's only one single species left alive. A single sole surviving species, Ginkgo biloba, which is also diacerous. It also has separate male and separate female plants too. And this one is a very good example of a fruit mimic, because the seeds have a seed coat which is fleshy.
Right.
Which
Now the
almost
yellow
looks like
stuff. Sorry, on the left side, it's like also a flower mimic. Like there's like a flowers kind of.
Oh, like it's like this one is the male structure, but it looks like flowers if you squint, but not really.
I mean, over here on the left side, the yellow.
This one. Oh,
Yeah.
these are just the leaves. These are leaves.
Okay.
Just all right. But yeah, so the seeds have a fleshy seed coat, which makes them look like they are berries, but they are not berries. Although I think some people eat them too, only when they are like not very ripe. Because when they become ripe, they produce what's called butyric acid. Basically, they smell like rancid butter, a very unpleasant smell. And this is why people people often plant these ginkgos in cities and such, but they only tend to plant male trees, because female trees produce these stinky fruits, and they are often very unpleasant smells. Yeah. And now, last but not least, the fourth group, the gnetophytes, the fourth group of gymnosperms. They are also mostly diacerous, like again separate male and female plants, but not always, but although most of them are diacerous. They are also insect pollinated. And they are a truly bizarre group of plants. They don't share many similarities between each other, and also not many similarities with other angios or with other gymnosperms, because they are very specialized to their own circumstances. And their phylogenetic relationship were hotly debated for many years. Like how these plants relate to other plants was a very hotly, to some extent, it still is debated, but not as much as it used to. Thanks to genetics, of course. Yeah. So you have 3 families, 3 genera, and about 125 species. Yeah. So the first genus is Netum.
Yep. Real fast. Go back.
Oh.
If there's 3 families, and that means there's 1 genera per family.
Yeah. Yes. You have 3 families, and from each family is one genus. Yeah.
Okay.
And the first family and genus is Netum. They live in the tropics, and most species grow as long woody vines and lianas. But some of them grow as small trees. So yeah, and they also do some fruit mimic thing as well. Yeah. and they are and their leaves they look like angiosperms. Like these leaves, you don't see these types of leaves among gymnosperms, not among the other gymnosperms, but these leaves you do see in the nitophytes. Yeah. And then the second genus is Ephedra. Most of these grow as small shrubs in very arid, dry regions of the world, like on shores, beaches, sandy soils, with direct sunlight in temperate, or they grow in temperate regions, but only when. Oh yeah, Vandalia left. I think he didn't disconnected. So do I wait for him or do I continue? You decide. People in the audience. Unless anybody says continue, I will just wait for Vandalia. You're back.
Yes.
I just waited for you, so I can just continue where I stopped.
Okay.
Right. The genus Ephedra, and they grow in dry, arid regions, often in direct sunlight, and because they are very drought adapted, they don't have leaves. They they almost don't have leaves. Their photosynthesis predominantly occurs on the green stems, as you can see. Like they are pretty much made of twigs, almost, and they don't have many. They don't have many leaves, or they have no leaves at all, because they are adapted to the dry conditions. Yeah. And then the last genus and the most unusual plant you can, I can think of, the most unusual plant ever, the Welwitschia mirabilis. And this one is restricted to the Namib Desert of Africa, like a very small region within Africa. It's also diacerous, and it grows a very short and broad woody stem, as you can see here. This is a very young plant of this species, and this stem is the only stem it grows, and it doesn't grow doesn't grow taller than this. And at the edge of this stem, you have it will grow 2 leaves, and it will and these leaves will continue to grow and grow and grow forever, for an eternity. And the tips of these 2 leaves, they often break and split, and that's why you can get these the braided leaves over here. And the 2 leaves can reach meters in length, 4 to 8 meters. But the leaves don't grow. They don't grow straight out. They just grow on the surface of the ground like this, and then what you end up with is like a bird's nest over here after a very long time. And because of this chaotic growth pattern, they often provide shade. A small habitat, like in the desert, they provide a small habitat for various insects, which are often suspected to be pollinators too. But there's still a debate about how much it is pollinated by these insects.
So since they're desert plants, these hold moisture good better than
Yeah.
other plants.
Yeah. They are. It is believed that their leaves are specialized to capture like morning dew, harvest moisture from dew at night, basically. And they also have a capacity to perform CAM photosynthesis, which is this type of photosynthesis is used to preserve water. They capture carbon dioxide at night, like through the leaves, and then during the day they close their stoma on the leaves so that they cannot capture carbon dioxide during the day, but they also don't lose as much water because they closed up their stoma. So this type of photosynthesis preserves water, and it's the only gymnosperm that we know of that does this type of photosynthesis. Like there are many angiosperms that do this type of photosynthesis, but not many.
And if you want to learn more about that, I'll put a card up there that has Dessa's video about photosynthesis on this channel
Yes.
from a few years ago.
Yes. Be prepared because that talk lasts 3 hours. I should have summarized it better back then. But anyway, yeah, it's the only gymnosperm that does this type of photosynthesis, and it grows very slowly, but it can grow for a very long time. Like an individual like this can be over 1,000 or several thousands of years old. Yeah, it's a really
so older than the flood.
No, maybe not that old. Like you're very, as I mentioned before, you're very old conifers, which are like 9,000 years old. But yeah, but these can be pretty old too, like several thousands of years. Yeah. And these are like some examples of like this is one male individual with cone-like structures of male strobili structures, and this is the female part, that you have like female cone-like structures. Yeah. But now we come to the phylogenetic dispute of the gnetophyte relationships. Like the gnetophytes, the ones we have discussed, these three, they have some traits associated with angiosperms. They have traits that are more similar to the flowering plants. Like they have vessel elements that flower plants have. They have double fertilization, another trait, very key trait to flowering plants. And they also have like they also try to cover their ovules, so they are almost no longer naked seeds anymore because they are covering their ovules with their own structures. So there was like one hypothesis called the anthophyte hypothesis, where gymnosperms are a paraphyletic group, where the gnetophytes are sister to the angiosperms, which are in this diagram here. You have the gnetophytes, also called the gnetales, are sister to the angiosperms. Another hypothesis was the gnetophyte sister hypothesis, which says that the gnetophytes are sister to all other seed plants. Let's see here. Over here, you have the angiosperms are more closely related to most gymnosperms, and then the gnetophytes are like an early divergent lineage. Although this hypothesis was never very commonly accepted. But then a more recent hypothesis is the Nitifer hypothesis, which says that gymnosperms are indeed monophyletic, which means that the gnetophytes are still closely related to the gymnosperms, and they are actually more closely related to the conifers. And this was recently supported by molecular data, but there are two versions. You have one version is the NICOP hypothesis, which says that the gnetophytes are more closely related to the Cupressidae. This one here, it's more closely related to the Cupressophytes. Another hypothesis is that the Nitophytes are more closely related to the pines. This phylogeny, the Nitophytes, are sister to the pine family. And the more recent studies that I have looked up support this latter view, that the weirdest group of gymnosperms are most closely related to the most common and most familiar gymnosperms, the pines. Which is really very, very unexpected to me, because the pines are very normal. You can see them almost everywhere in the world, even though they aren't as common as the angiosperms, obviously. But the pines, you can find the pine if you try to look for them. But then the Nitophytes are most closely related to them, apparently. Weird.
Mm-hmm.
So now we move on to like more of the fossil or the ancient history of the gymnosperms, and the gymnosperms are pretty ancient too. Like this, as I mentioned before, the spermatophytes, the seed plants, the common ancestor of the gymnosperms and angiosperms, they originated in the late Devonian, about 360 million years ago, and the split between the gymnosperms and the angiosperms occurred around the same time, in the late Devonian, right there.
All right, so basically, as soon as they split from the ferns, those two split up themselves.
The common ancestor with ferns, I think, occurred a bit earlier. Okay, I think it's in this figure right here. They split from the ferns in the late Silurian, according to this phylogeny. So a few hundred million, like about a few dozen million years earlier, yeah. So the split between gymnosperms and angiosperms occurred in the Devonian, around the time when the first tetrapods ventured onto land, around the same time, yeah.
All right.
And then the gymnosperms, within the gymnosperm group, you have also some early separations of the lineages. Like you have the conifer group split. Let's see. Maybe I can make it. Hold on. Make it a bit larger for myself. There you go. Now I can read the figure that I have prepared, or at least borrowed from one citation. So they have the conifers separated, and they also separated into like three main groups: the Cupressidae, the pine group, and also the Nitophytes diverged from the conifers in the Carboniferous. So yeah, there's the conifers split into the pines, the Cupressidae, and the Cupressidae also split into the Cupressidae also split in the late Carboniferous as well. Here into two groups. So at the end of the Carboniferous, you had four groups of conifers: the pines, the two groups of Cupressidae, and the Nitophytes.
So it's Carboniferous. So were any of these plants that became the colloidally used nowadays?
Probably, yeah. So I think there are also a few conifers. Although the I think I will mention it later. Like there were many other relatives which were more predominant during this time. I think there were also many lycopod, like giant lycopods that were also around during the Carboniferous, which are not gymnosperms. The lycopods are a different group of plants altogether. Yeah, but you have these four groups of conifers, or actually three groups of conifers, and the Nitophytes at the end of the Carboniferous, and also the ginkgos and the cycads are each other closest living relatives. The ginkgos are most closely related to the cycads, and these two split also in the Carboniferous too. But then But then, as you can see here, within each of these groups, they didn't diversify until the Triassic. Okay, if you can see in the Triassic, then you see more the divisions happening. So they have a more abundant evolution in the Mesozoic here. Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to say most of these families diverse way before dinosaurs were a thing.
Like the main groups, the four groups of conifers and the ginkgos and the cycads, they split from each other before the dinosaurs. But then during the time of the dinosaurs, then you have many more splitting events within each of these groups. So they began to diversify prevalently during the time of the dinosaurs. Yeah.
Speaking of that, we talk about the animals that died during these extinction events, but how many plants died during these different events, like the Permian extinction, the KT extinction, and all them?
And there are a few groups that have died, but not many. Like plants are very resilient, it seems. Although during the Permian, I think that there were indeed a few groups that went extinct. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but not as drastic as the animals. The animals took a pretty big hit during those events. Yeah. And as you can see here, like the odd group, the Nitophytes, which are most closely related to the like here the Nitophytes, which are most closely related to the pines, they diverged in the Carboniferous a very long time ago. So they had enough time to become very different from the familiar pine trees. So yeah. So they specialize during this long time. They become very specialized and very different from each other. Yeah. And also last point, as I mentioned before, each of these groups didn't diversify until the late Permian or after. So yeah. So the pines diversified in the late Triassic. The Nitophytes diversified in the Triassic, and the Araucariales diversified just before the Permian, but most of them diversified in the Mesozoic, and then of course you have this group here, the Cupressidae or the Cupressales. They diversified, like most of them again diversified later. Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, they survived the Great Dying.
They survived the Great Dying. Yeah. You can see that not many lineages past the Great Dying. So perhaps you had many groups over here, but they went extinct during this time. Yeah.
But these are all extinct living extinct plants then.
And these are extant.
Extant. Yes. That's why I meant extant. That's the word.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So now we have like one important group to mention during the evolution is called the pro-gymnosperms, which are basically the ancestors of the seed plants. They are stem spermatophytes. They are more closely related to the seed plants than they are to the ferns, basically, and they are all extinct. These pro-gymnosperms. And they are.
So these are like fossil plants that
yes.
They're like what they would call transitional species.
Exactly. They are like unlike the seed plants. These pro-gymnosperms still bear spores, not seeds. So they don't produce seeds like the seed plants, but they are woody plants, more like the seed plants, because ferns are not woody plants. So they have traits of both. They have traits intermediate between the seed plants and the ferns. Yeah.
All right.
And these pro-gymnosperms, like they appear in the Middle Devonian, around 390 million years ago, and they last until the end of the Permian. and they become extinct.
So these might have died in the Great Dying then.
Yes. These are the ones that didn't go through the greatest of the all mass extinction events. Yeah. So you have like in this picture here, you have the Devonian, where the early land plants emerged, and then in the later Devonian, you have like some of the earliest vascular plants that become taller. And then you have like and then in the latest, you have the diversification of the seed plants or the progymnosperms. These woody trees that you can see here. These are like progymnosperms or early seed plants. Yeah. Did I mention before? Oh, no, I didn't skip anything. All right. And in the Carboniferous, you have like more of these trees, but you have also these lycopod trees, which are not seed plants. The lycopods. Yeah. So again, the progymnosperms they lasted until the end of the Permian, and also the progymnosperms during the early, they appear in the early or in the middle Devonian, and the progymnosperms and also all other early seed plants were implicated in the Devonian extinction. Like before the Permian extinction over here, you had the Devonian extinction, not as severe as the Permian, but still one of the big 5 biggest extinction events in the Devonian. They are the progymnosperms, and the early seed plants have been implicated as being one of the cause or one of the main drivers of the extinction event at the end of the Devonian. They caused eutrophication by increasing the weathering of soils, and that led to nutrient runoff into the ocean, which caused like toxic algae blooms, where you can have like which can cause anoxia, like the absence of oxygen in the ocean, which can cause very massive problems for ocean life. And this is like one picture that you can see. In the early land plants there, they don't have true roots, so they don't grow deep into the soil. But when you have the early seed plants and the early progymnosperms, their roots grow very deep into the soil, and this has been one proposed explanation for the extinction events, where you have like these very deep roots that break up the soil, and that can cause very high nutrient runoffs into the ocean, where you can have algae blooms and these other problems. And also one other related thing is that during this time in the Devonian, when you have the appearance of these very big tall trees, you have a drastic reduction in the atmosphere carbon dioxide content, a very drastic drop in temperature, a drastic drop in carbon dioxide amount in the atmosphere. It actually went down to about the same levels that we have about around now. Like before, carbon dioxide was much more prevalent in the atmosphere, but then over time, until the Carboniferous, the carbon dioxide was pretty much going down until the lowest point ever.
All right.
And this is also one related effect of this is that this drop in carbon dioxide caused the late Paleozoic ice house, or also called the Karoo Ice Age, during this time, during the late Devonian, and this ice age lasted until the Permian extinction event. Yeah.
So it lasted, but from the to the Carboniferous and to the Permian.
This ice age began in the late Devonian, and then when during the Permian extinction, you have like a massive flat basalt eruption. Basically, you have a continent scale volcano that just spews out carbon dioxide for many centuries or even millennia.
Yeah,
and
that might melt some ice.
Yeah, and that helped drive up the temperatures back up again. So the ice age ended, and also many species went extinct because of that drastic shift in climate too at the end of the Permian.
So basically, this ice age lasted a lot longer than any current ones we've had in the past.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest ice ages, that Earth has seen, especially in the Paleozoic, or I mean in the Phanerozoic too, yeah. And there's one good example of progymnosperm, this Archaeopteryx, not to be confused with Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx is the like an early relative of birds, but Archaeopteryx is a an early progymnosperm. As you can see, the tree pretty much looks like a maybe like a modern conifer, perhaps. But then if you look closely at the leaves don't grow cones; they produce spores. And that's what separates the progymnosperms from the modern seed plants. They don't have seeds yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I need to drink some water.
All right.
All right. And another group of progymnosperms are from the Noegeratiales, if I pronounce correctly, from the mid-Carboniferous, the late Permian. They were considered to be relatives of the horsetails or ferns, but now in a recent study they were linked to like one of the closest relatives of the seed plants. Like you have these progymnosperms that are more early division, and this group is more closely related to the true seed plants. Yeah. And another group that we can consider is the seed ferns. Like first we had the progymnosperms, which are the ancestors of the seed plants, but now we have the seed ferns, which are true. These are the true seed. These are true seed plants. They are within the spermatophyte group, close related to the gymnosperms and angiosperms, but they are a very confusing paraphyletic group. They are like, some of them are more closely related to the gymnosperms. Some may be more closely related to the angiosperms, but there is also many discussions about that. So their exact relationships are still up for debate. Yeah, but they are so basically the seed ferns are any extinct seed plant which are neither gymnosperm or modern angiosperm. So yeah, so they are a paraphyletic group. So the ancestors of both gymnosperms and angiosperms. Yeah. And these began in the late Devonian. Again, it's the same as the start of the seed plants, basically. And they were the predominant seed plants during the Carboniferous and Permian. Like the modern gymnosperm group were more like very insignificant compared to the seed ferns. The seed ferns dominated during the Carboniferous and the Permian. But after the Permian, the true gymnosperms began to dominate the flora, especially during the Triassic and the Jurassic. And with a few of these seed ferns lasted until the end of the Cretaceous, but some may have survived until the Eocene.
Oh. So a few of them died during the impact event, but some of them made it through.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there are a few fossils that have been considered to be like a late surviving seed fern, but it's not a very not very certain. So yeah, so they may have survived, or they may have all gone extinct at the end of the Cretaceous. Yeah. And here's one example of a seed fern, the Cationales. They and this is sort of like this particular group has often been considered to be like a more closely related to the angiosperms, because some of them have they almost enclose their seeds within a fruit-like structure, basically. So yeah, so that's one of the reasons why they have they are sometimes or often considered to be close relatives of the angiosperms. And then another group is the Penetitales. They have also sometimes like they look like cycads when it comes to the leaves and overall plant structure, but they also have flower-like reproductive organs. So they are sometimes to be considered to be closely aligned with the angiosperms. Although again, that's still a very it's a very contested topic of which of the seed ferns are actually close relatives of the angiosperms. Yeah, so it's very difficult to determine this, because like when you look at a plant fossil, it's often like squished, a flat two-dimensional structure, and you can get it's difficult to discern the fine details that you would need to determine an affinity with the flowering plants. Like flowers are very delicate structures, as you can imagine. They don't fossilize very easily.
So I have a few questions here. So we know for sure that angiosperms and gymnosperms are two separate clades, and not inside the other clade.
Yes. I mentioned earlier about the nitophytes, like the nitophytes, the ones that are alive. The weird. If I maybe can go back a bit. I can go back. Here, like these the nitophytes, they were once considered to be like more closely related to the angiosperms, which this would have made gymnosperms paraphyletic. That would mean that the angiosperms are descended from gymnosperms, but now we are very certain that they are separate groups. The gymnosperms are one group and the angiosperms are another group. Yeah. The ones that are alive. Yeah.
Next question, I guess, unless you're answering it later, is: are the gymnosperms what people call evergreens? Like they're not deciduous, where they lose their leaves.
Especially the conifers, many of them are evergreen, yes, but there are a few exceptions. I think, yeah, they are.
Right.
Like the gymnosperm, like especially the conifer. The conifer lifestyle seems to be just to grow very slowly, just coasting through the harshness of the environment. Like the angiosperms seem to be like grow fast, and then when it gets difficult, then you just lose your leaves and then wait until spring arrives. Yeah, it seems. Of course, there are exceptions on both sides. Yeah.
And finally, I guess the last question, this group question is: if they were at war, which one is winning in the population department?
Yeah, especially the angiosperms would especially be on the winning side right now, because the angiosperms, they're both in number of species and in terms of biomass, the angiosperms still outweigh the gymnosperms. But the gymnosperms seems to be doing pretty well. Now, some of them are of course on the brink of extinction, but like many pines, they dominate like the many habitats, especially the high altitude mountainous regions and the high latitude, the tundra environment. You know, the taiga biomes and such. Those environments you see. Like where gymnosperms are the dominant form of plants. Yeah, so they are doing their own thing, and they are doing it pretty good. sometimes. Yeah.
All right.
So, and this is number one good image that summarizes these groups. You have extinct. If like these the orange groups are some of the extinct seed ferns. Like first we went over the progymnosperms in the Devonian, and then the descendants of the progymnosperms are the seed ferns. The orange groups right here. We mentioned some of those. Like for example, the Caetonales and Benedetales are implicated as close relatives of the angiosperms, but that is not very certain at this point. There are also many other groups that are more closely related to the extant gymnosperms, and one of them is like one of these the Chordaitales. This one here. These are the and also then the next group is on the Voltaiales, and these are like consecutively ancestral to the conifers. Like this one is the ancestors of this one, and this one's the ancestors of the conifers, and also perhaps the Nithophytes too. The Nithophytes are like now. It's maybe a very old image, but now we know that the Nithophytes are within the conifers. So this should be a subset of this. So that's one thing that needs to be corrected, I think. Yeah. And then of course like the ginkgos, and although the ginkgos are now believed are now determined to be more closely related to the cycads. So this should go over here. They should connect more closely to the cycads. So yeah, again, this is maybe an old image, but it is a very useful image to illustrate these different groups. You have also some completely extinct families, the Palisaeales and the Gyrolepidiaceae, which are, let's see here. Are they shown here? Or maybe they are not shown here. No, they aren't shown here. All right. And to name some extinct ginkgos. Ginkgos are often called living fossils, but they are not living fossils because if you can see their fossil records, you can see that the ginkgos, they change over many years, millions of years. Okay, you have this species from the Middle Jurassic, where you can see these leaves are like they have 4 lobes. Like the modern ones have this fan-like shape of the leaves, but these are like 4 lobes, and they also have 4 seeds on each cluster, and the modern ones only have 2 seeds on each cluster. Like if I can move one step closer, you can see that the ginkgos change over time. See? There you go.
Yeah.
A little animation.
Nice little slideshow.
Yeah. This one is the earliest, Middle Jurassic, Late Jurassic, Late Cretaceous to Miocene, and this is the living ginkgo that we have today. So yes, they did not stay the same. They changed. Get over it. Yeah. Take a drink. All right. So now we have some extinct conifers. The modern crown group of several gymnosperm group established in the Triassic period. So that you have in the Triassic you have the crown group of the pines, and also several crown groups of the Cupressidae groups. They began to diverge and diversify during the Triassic, especially both modern and extinct conifer groups underwent a rapid diversification after the Carnian pluvial episode, like during this time interval from 234 to 232 million years ago. You have what's called the Carnian pluvial episode, where you have a very drastic increase in the amount of precipitation, like a lot of rain, basically. very drastic shift in the pattern of how much rainfall an area receives. And during this time, you have like many, like several ferns and several carnivore plant groups began to appear in the fossil record too, and they began to diversify after this event. There was also a burst in amber. Like amber is like tree sap, of course. It's fossilized tree sap, and so we also see a burst in the amber fossil record here during this time. And also related to this is you have also a burst in the prevalence of herbivores. The herbivores took advantage of this explosion in floral plant diversity, especially like during this time or after this, like before this time, the dinosaurs were very a small group of or a small participant in the ecosystem. But after this, the dinosaurs began to gain dominance in the ecosystem, especially the early sauropodomorphs, the giant herbivores of the dinosaurs. Yeah, they began.
Now, speaking of herbivores, are there a lot of herbivores that eat carnivore? Not carnivore. That eat gymnosperms and conifers and stuff like that.
Yes. In fact, the herbivorous dinosaurs they predominantly ate gymnosperms, like cycads, and also like they also ate ferns and horsetails. Probably like ferns and horsetails are non-seed plants, but the dinosaurs they ate also gymnosperms. Yeah. In fact, if I can go back all the way back, perhaps I can show you one that I mentioned before. Oh, this one, like Araucaria, like one of the reasons why Araucaria looks like this, where most of the leaves grow on the top, is probably because in response to the sauropods, like the sauropods, they all like in order to avoid the big sauropods, they grow tall and they want to put the leaves out of reach of the herbivores. But only the sauropods evolved long necks and bigger sizes to reach these leaves. Probably it's been a co-evolutionary response between these two, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the evolution of conifers has been implicated in extinction events, in the Devonian extinction event. In the Devonian extinction event, you have early seed plants. Probably was like one of the causes of the extinction event. But then later, the conifers was responsible for the diversification of the dinosaurs. Basically, they helped dinosaurs to gain a foothold in the ecosystem. And then you have the Carnian Peluvial, like a good artistic rendering of the Carnian Peluvial event, where you have lots of rainfall, and the gymnosperms, or especially the conifers, began to diversify, and then the dinosaurs became a more dominant feature of the ecosystem, thanks to the conifers. You also have with conifers, as I mentioned before, some conifers are pollinated by insects, and of course, as you might expect, the earliest pollinators are associated with one of the earliest gymnosperms. Like you have extinct scorpion flies, which are not like modern scorpion flies are predatory. I think pretty much all of them, maybe all of them, or pretty much all of them are predatory. But you have extinct scorpion flies, which are believed to have been pollinating gymnosperms. One of the earliest pollinators are scorpion flies. And another interesting pollinator are an extinct group of lacewings. which were a major group of gymnosperm pollinators from the Middle Jurassic to the early Cretaceous. And these lacewings have convertedly evolved to be similar to butterflies. Very, very interesting and neat.
But nowhere near related to them.
Yeah, no. Lacewings are not. I don't think lacewings are related or closely related to butterflies. Yeah. In any case, these are not butterflies. They are lacewings, but they have evolved to be very similar to butterflies. Yeah. So to summarize the talk, you have the spermatophytes, the sea plants, the early seed ferns flourished during the Carboniferous and the Permian. But then after the Permian, the gymnosperms began to dominate and displace the seed plant or the seed ferns throughout the Mesozoic. But then the angiosperms began to dominate during the Cretaceous. But gymnosperms are still cool and often a critical aspect of the flora in many parts of the world. And that concludes my presentation.
You're looking mighty, Pine. Little pun there. Did you learn anything new about gymnosperms that you didn't know before you started this presentation?
I did have some. I did find some new interesting things. Like I did not know, for example, that there were pollinating scorpion flies. Like I was aware of the lacewings, but I wasn't aware of these scorpion flies. That's one of the new things that I found out recently. Yeah.
Right, cool. So, as we wait for any questions in chat, is there anything coming up on your channel or your future of YouTube that you're going to be participating in the next week or so?
No, like I will, like tomorrow I will join another stream on Jackson and Wheat's channel, where we will discuss some things about dinosaurs and birds. So that's one. But on my own channel, no.
All right. So if you're not subscribed yet, check out Jackson Wheat's channel tomorrow at 8 p.m. EDT.
Mm-hmm. Right. Is there any questions in the live chat, or perhaps not?
Doesn't look like it. So, thanks for being on again.
All right.
And as always, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We'll see you next time. Bye.